Class is in session today. Pop quiz, do you know what it means to be a four-faced Christian? Well, we welcome our former high school teacher and Christian Club advisor, Mrs. Pia Hugo, to teach us on what that means in her new book, Becoming a Four-Faced Christian, My Journey from Traumas to Triumphs. A devoted leader in her community, Pia Hugo has worked as a public high school teacher for over 22 years, mentors both teens and adults, compassionately serves the homeless on Skid Row, and is the founder and director of Zion Healing and Restoration Ministries based in Los Angeles. Pia truly has such a powerfully anointed message and a sense of urgency to share with believers and non-believers alike in her new book, so be sure to watch our interview now to get an interview into all that she's done and is doing to share the love of Jesus through generations.
Savior, you're all Savior, you're all you are all I need, you are all I need. Savior, you're all Savior, you're all you are all I need, you are all I need.
Hi, beautiful friends. Welcome to the Elena and Natalia show. We're twin hosts. I'm Natalia Moranian. Hi, and I'm Elena Moranian. Well, I have to tell you, we're going back to school today with our former high school teacher and the ever-youthful Mrs. Pia Hugo. Welcome.
Hi. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I am so excited to be here.
Oh, we are so excited. It's bringing back so much nostalgia just to see you. I mean, you haven't
Hopefully
changed.
good memories.
Very
good.
good.
Okay.
You haven't changed a day. I know. And you look
Thank
the
you.
same.
See, that's why I love you, girl.
No, it's the truth.
It's the
We wouldn't
truth.
say it if it wasn't true. I mean,
Thank
how many
you.
years have passed since high school? Over
10,
a
11,
decade. Over a decade.
Yeah. Okay, don't remind me. Okay.
I know.
Sometimes I don't want to be reminded of my
You
age.
still look the same. You're evergreen. You're
Thank
still
you.
the same.
Well, you know what? I have to thank the Lord.
Amen.
He keeps us ever youthful.
He renews our youth like the eagles. It's
There
never
you
too
go.
soon to start praying that. Yes. We're so excited to be with you today and for you to share your heart. I know that you're a public school teacher and you'll be imparting lessons learned and teaching us along the way as well. So it's classes in session.
You can never stop learning.
Yes. Yeah, that's the truth. And so just so that our audience can know, you were my summer school econ Both teacher. of ours, but in separate and classes.
classes.
As well. And I remember it was in 2007, and that was also the time that you got married.
I
on
did.
7/7/7.
7/7/7. You know, I chose that date so my husband would always remember our anniversary
No
date.
excuses.
That's right.
Such a beautiful date. 7/7/7.
Yeah, I
Shout
was so
out,
happy to have both of you.
Aw.
Of course, it was a little hard to Elena, Natalia, keep you straight.
Yeah.
I still have a little bit of difficulty, but I think I got it down now.
Now, Elena is the black hair.
Elena, yes.
And Natalia is the blonde hair.
There you
no
go.
mix up
Newly
or
blonde.
confusion here. No more confusion.
No more confusion.
Yeah, so I wanted to do a special shout out to your former high school as well, Crescenta Valley High
Yeah,
School.
CV.
CV. What has
Falcon.
changed? I mean, do they still have CVTV?
Of course, yes. Since you were one of our TV talk show hosts, yes.
I was one of their CVTV anchors. Proud at that. Yeah.
Yes, that's where you got your beginnings, right?
Yeah, it actually was my beginnings. I had no clue that I wanted to go into TV, and then Elena saw an audition happening. I'm like,
let's
we try it out.
There you go. And little did you know that you would someday go international.
Wow, God's great.
God knew.
Yeah,
God
God
knew.
had the right plan. But we love CV and the fact that you were a Christian Club advisor as well.
And
you
I still am.
are
I
after
still am.
22 years, is it?
Yeah, this is my 23rd year of
23rd
teaching
year of
going
teaching.
in. So yeah.
So you started in 96?
Yeah, 97.
97. Okay, so you're going into your 23rd year. That
Yes.
was the year our little sister Catalina was born.
Oh,
she was also your
and she was
student
also
as
my
well.
student.
Wow.
That's right.
Wow. That's amazing. God is faithful. So I know we're calling this an interview with you, but I really feel like it's an inner view. Yeah. We're getting an interview into your life, who you are, and your new book that you wrote, Becoming a Four-Faced Christian, which
there you go.
when you sent me the copy of it, it was online at the time. A manuscript of it. I read it literally in about a week or less than, and it so moved me. I mean, we knew you as I knew you as a professional high school teacher, but this gave truly a personal, intimate look into your life and who you are and what makes you you. And really a clarion call, prophetic, urgent message that we need our viewers to read and to stick around to this interview to listen to.
Absolutely.
And
I thank you for having me and allowing me this opportunity to share a little bit, because my life is an open book.
Literally.
So, literally.
I love it. I love it. And so just to start with your life as an open book, I'd like to start with an icebreaker. An icebreaker. You know how students, you know how teachers do icebreakers with their students on the first day of school?
Absolutely.
They're like, give us 3 fun facts. So we'll do, instead of 3 fun facts, we know your name is Pia. Using the first 3 letters of your name.
Okay, which is basically all of the letters.
What adjectives would you use to describe yourself?
Oh, that's awesome. I love that question. I should use that as an icebreaker for one of my classes.
For those who have super long names, it might go on forever.
But first 3 letters, right?
It works for yours. The first 3.
So I would say P for positive, because I think that is one of the reasons why I keep ever youthful, just having a positive outlook.
True. Good attitude.
Always having, the best in mind.
Yeah.
I would say is inquisitive, because as a teacher, I think I have to be ever learning myself. So I'm always curious to learn. And A, I would say, oh, that's a hard one, because there's so many A adjectives. So how about I'm gonna go with attractive, but not like physically.
You are
like
physically.
I want to make sure I want to make sure that the message that God has put in my life is attractive to those especially who need to hear the message. So I guess that's why I'm here. Because I want to make sure that we're going to attract the right audience who are going to listen to this interview, and not so much to get to know me, although that's part of it, but really get to know the God who lives in me.
Amen.
So that's why A for attractive.
That's a beautiful explanation. Positive, inquisitive, and attractive. You know, when we were thinking about that, suddenly 3 words came to me.
We feel it's Holy Spirit.
Yeah, we feel along with those 3 words. Powerful.
All right.
Inspirational.
All right.
And anointed.
Woohoo!
Anointing is the attractive.
Awesome. Awesome. I'll take that too.
Amen. So we introduced Pia, who's going to be sharing her heart and the heart of God with our viewers today. And so we're excited. So tell us more about where you're from. We know you're from the Philippines, but which part specifically? A little bit about your upbringing.
Yeah, absolutely. Do we have like 5 hours?
I know every time I ask that, I try to be mindful that their story is loaded, but
I'll keep it
about
short.
Where you're from.
So I grew up in Manila, Philippines.
Manila, yes.
So Manila is the capital of the Philippines. And Manila is like a hodgepodge, just a little bit like Los Angeles, where you have a diversity of people. And I feel like I grew up in a city that was always hustling and bustling. And we were all we all had very busy lives.
I see.
And so how I'm going to start my story is saying that I was the youngest of 7 children. And by the time I was born, all my siblings were already going to school. Both my mom and my dad were working. They were busy. So as a young toddler, I was pretty much left on my own. So the thing about my upbringing that I want to bring out is that I was never really lonely when I was little. And I mentioned that in my book because I always had this connection with God. I grew up Catholic, like most Filipinos. And I was told, if you just talk to God like a conversation, He can actually talk back to you. So I would have these like conversations with God as I'm playing with my dolls or just like going around my house, and I would sing to Him. So ever since I was little, I always felt like I had this invisible connection with God.
Because we know some kids who talk to imaginary friends and dolls, but you knew you were talking to God.
And it's interesting that even as growing up in a Catholic household, that you still had that
connection. Deep knowing that you can
Yes.
have a one-on-one conversation with God.
Yeah, it's a little uncanny because I know that a lot of people think of Catholicism as kind of a dead religion. And if you're Catholic, you know, I mean, I don't mean to offend anyone, but we had a lot of rituals in our religion.
Tradition.
However, somehow I was able to just really pick up on the fact that no, God is a personal God. And I think I attribute that to my grandmother, who was very religious. And so she taught me all these things about how to pray, how to just be able to look at God as a friend.
Yeah, I love that because he really is a friend. You're from the Philippines. Do you speak the language Tagalog?
I do.
Oh, you do?
I do. I am fluent in Tagalog.
What languages are you fluent in?
I would say two, definitely. English, Tagalog. I am married to a Mexican American.
Spanish.
So I can say, comprendo español, pero no lo hablo mucho.
Pero hablas muy bien.
Claro
que
gracias,
vamos a
gracias.
practicar.
Okay, now let's not get carried away. Let's go back to English.
Speak in the Spirit. Holy Spirit. So tell us, how do you say Jesus loves you in Tagalog?
Mahal ka ng Dios.
Oh, so Dios is like
God
Spanish.
loves you.
Mahal
Yes.
ka
Ng Dios.
And-
Or you can say ni Jesus, which is Jesus loves you.
Mahal ka,
Mahal with an L.
mahal.
Mahal ka ng Jesus.
Wow, I just feel like the chills just hearing
like
that.
Yeah, isn't it beautiful?
Mahal ka
ng Dios, which is
Mahal ka
God,
ng
or
Diyos.
ni Jesus,
Amen.
which is Jesus.
Someone needs to
loves
hear that
you.
today in their native language.
Amen.
Jesus loves you. Oh. So, you know, in your book, you also share about, you know, your upbringing and, you know, you've experienced that
Yes.
Jesus really is a friend to you, that even at a young age you knew that, but that didn't mean you didn't go through much trials and trauma, even as a young girl growing up in the Philippines. So with however much you feel comfortable with, can you share some of the traumas you experienced even at a young age in the Philippines?
Absolutely. So as you can see,
Yeah.
my book says my journey from traumas to triumph.
I love that title.
So the traumas that I experienced growing up, for the longest time, I actually couldn't even talk about it. I never told my parents.
Wow.
Because when you grow up in a Catholic family, there's this very strong, like, don't talk rule, like, only show the positive. And so I just felt compelled to just keep everything, all that pain inside of me. So the first trauma came when I was just 5 years old.
Yeah.
I was actually sexually assaulted
Wow.
by somebody that my family trusted.
Wow.
And it happened 3 times. So I was actually raped. And then when I got a little older, I was like 12 or 13 years old, and I had somebody in my family, within my family, actually abuse me as well, molest me. So I had this inner message that told me that I wasn't worthy. You know, that my body was something that was just to be used. So when I got married at a really young age, and I'm going to just go fast forward. So by the time I was 18, 19 years old, my parents thought it would be a good idea to come here to the States and have a better education. So I went to college here in Washington, D.C. I went to George Washington University.
Yeah. Wow.
So, and I met
major? someone,
and my major was economics, which is why I taught you econ. Yes.
Now you're teaching history, though.
And I'm teaching history and econ.
Yeah, I so enjoyed that class.
Yeah.
I did good teacher.
So I actually knew what I was doing.
Yes, I did. More than you.
Yes. So anyway, so when I was in college, I met someone, and at a very young age, just I felt that I had all this pain, and I was always looking for a way to escape it. So some people, they might go into drugs, they might go into alcoholism, they might go into all kinds of addictions. For me, I felt like finding someone who was gonna meet my needs, be there for me, make me feel special. I thought that was my way of escape.
Wow.
So when I met my ex-husband, he embodied all of that. He was someone who was paying attention, you know, making me feel special. So at a very young age, I got married. I was 20 when I got married the first time. And at that time, I thought that, you know, my life was set.
Yeah.
And I do mention in the book that I did have a conversion experience. And what I mean by that is I met my husband's sister, my sister-in-law. And I remember her asking me this question, do you know Jesus as your best friend? Now, I knew God as my friend.
Okay.
But when she said best friend, that was like a new
Wow.
concept.
Because most people just say God is my
Jesus, a
friend,
friend
but
of
that's a good
Jesus.
distinction.
Yeah, like
That's your
somebody
best
who's
friend.
like you're confident,
Yeah.
somebody who's like there and you can pray and you can see your prayers answered. Like that was all very new for a Catholic girl like
Yeah,
me.
right.
I thought that following God meant you just follow all the rules. And if you're good enough, you get to go to heaven.
Workspace.
Workspace, exactly. So when she said, no, you just have to put your faith in Jesus. And I knew God, but I didn't really know Jesus. I knew he was the Son of God, but it was all very vague. So when she started explaining the gospel, I, at that point, decided, you know what? I think I want to try Christian churches, Protestant churches. So that's what allowed me to convert from Catholicism to Protestantism. But as you can see, as you will see in the book, that's not my actual like like I get the gospel. That comes much later.
Wow. So there was a lot of trauma that started at a young age, and it's unfathomable to even think of a 5-year-old going through abuse, let alone sexual abuse, let alone by a family member. But to see that your heart was still moldable and still soft to be able to receive that later on into the life, receive the gospel, it shows that your heart wasn't hardened ultimately. It was softened to the Lord, because some people run towards. Yeah, but what were your thoughts towards God when that happened? Did you still look at him as your friend?
That is a great question. So I think a lot of people, and I just want to speak to everybody going through trauma.
Yeah.
When you're going through trauma, when you're going through extreme emotional pain, the natural inclination of your heart is to shut down, to just harden, to put up a wall.
Yeah.
And there was a wall that was built. And I think by the time I was in my 5th year of my marriage, that wall had hardened.
Wow.
And the reason why is because soon after we were married, his true colors started coming out.
Wow.
And I realized that I had basically married an abuser.
Wow.
So he was emotionally abusive, mentally abusive.
Abuse followed you into the marriage.
Exactly, exactly. And that's actually not too uncommon.
And it's something you probably wouldn't have even thought of happening, especially if you thought you were marrying a godly man.
Exactly.
That's the
Exactly.
That's the saddest and scariest part.
But I think it's because of the traumas. I think when you grow up thinking, and even if it's not something that you would think on the outside, but I think internally, I had really embraced this message of I'm nothing, I'm worthless. So in psychology, they say that attracts that kind of man.
Interesting.
Someone who will repeat those childhood messages. So when I married my abuser, in the one hand, it was a shock, but on the other hand, it was like, well, I already know I'm nothing. I already know I'm never going to amount to anything.
So your self-worth was so diminished.
So diminished.
That you felt that that's what you deserved.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
Or all you can receive in life.
Yes. Yeah.
And one of our favorite quotes is, being that you're a teacher as well, we relate. I'm sure you can relate to it. When you are going through something hard and wonder where God is, remember the teacher is always quiet during the test.
I like that.
Have you heard
Yes,
that?
I have.
The teacher's always silent during the test. When I first heard that quote, it's like, that's true, because you might think, God, where are you? But he's never left your side. He's never abandoned you.
Yeah.
And most people would think, where was God when you were being abused as a little girl, as a 5-year-old? And most people would think, why would God allow such a thing? So what can you say to someone who's going through those things and mad at God?
Yeah. Well, I was.
Yeah.
I was, because God was silent for many of the years when I was married to my abuser. And like almost, I wouldn't say every night, but there were many nights when I would just cry out to God and say, where are you? There's a Psalm 13, I believe, where how long do I have to wrestle with these thoughts?
David.
Yes.
He
and-
opened his heart freely and
Yes.
fully to the Lord.
right? Like all the pain and all the emotions going on inside. And many times, like that quote, I felt God was silent. So I was angry inside. Now on the outside, you would never know that because my ex-husband and I were actually church leaders.
Okay.
So we would serve, we would do good works. But again, I don't think I was necessarily out of the Catholic mindset of still having to do good works. So anyway, fast forward, if I may,
Yeah, of course.
to my divorce. So finally, I decided I can't do this anymore. My ex-husband progressively got more physically abusive. And when he started abusing my child, and by this time, my daughter, I had 3 kids
Yeah.
all at once.
Wow.
Like my first daughter was 23, next 25, next 27.
Amazing.
And in fact, you guys know who they
went to
are
school
because you
with
all
them.
went to the same
Yeah.
school around the same
Go
time.
CV.
Go CV.
Go Falcons.
So all 3 kids were the product of this marriage.
Okay.
And by the time my daughter was 5, my son was 3, and the other son was 1, my ex-husband was a full-blown abuser at that point. Because what happens when you don't say no to the bully will keep bullying you. And that's why they say you can't appease a bully.
Yeah.
You have to at some point say no. So at around 28, 29 years old, I was just done.
Wow.
And it didn't help that at that time, the church that I was going to was, I could say, legalistic. You know, they didn't really understand
Yeah.
the abuse that I was going through. And now I've forgiven my church leaders. Like there's nothing in my heart against them, but I think they were just largely ignorant as to what was really going on in my marriage.
Right.
And they didn't really know how to help me.
Yeah.
So at 30 years old, I was a broken woman. By that time, I was divorced. I was totally just confused. I had to struggle financially raising my 3 kids on my own.
Difficult.
So I would say from the time I was 5 years old to about, let's say 35, that's the trauma. It was like one trauma after another while struggling to remain a Christian.
Wow.
So
Why do you think God allowed you to experience all this trauma for 30 years?
yeah,
From childhood abuse to marriage abuse to being a single mom with 3 children, struggling financially. Why do you think He allowed you to go through that?
so that's an excellent question because I think that is the question that everyone asks.
Why?
When, whether it's a car accident that leaves you paralyzed or some other kind of traumatic experience. And the question, especially if you're a Christian, especially if you're like, God, I'm all about you. Yeah, I want to follow you. I want to serve you. And then all of a sudden, boom, 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 you get hit.
Yeah.
So the why questions are the best because that forces you to wrestle. That forces you to bring up the pain. So instead of always trying to like push it down or let me build up the wall, and when people say, how are you? You put your fake smile. Oh, I'm great. I'm blessed. Hallelujah, right?
Well, which is good, but
yes,
what's
but
the
if
real,
it's not real, then let's not go there, right?
Let's get real.
So part of my book is part of my book, the message is let's all get real. We all go through trauma. We all go through pain in all shapes and forms and sizes. And so today as a high school teacher, now I know why. So I started teaching, as you said, back in 97.
Yes.
And at that time, I was still struggling, right? I was still wrestling with myself. In fact, again, there's a chapter in my book that describes how I walked away. Because at some point,
Christianity.
like I still believed in God, but I stopped serving. I was what you might call a nominal Christian.
Nominal. I see.
I called myself Christian, but I pretty much
Lukewarm.
just shut my heart from God because I was still angry. But by God's grace, there came that period where when I was out there in the world, by now I was a single mom, and I actually started dating. I started going out into the, the club scene.
Yeah.
And so while my kids were being babysat, by grandma and grandpa, like, okay.
You got married so young, you
because
felt like
I
you're
got
trying to find yourself again.
I never
Let's restore the
really
20s.
experienced that.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like a delayed adolescence. But after all that, it was a brief period, just a few years. And after that, I felt even emptier, even more guilty now, and ashamed. Like, what am I doing with my life? What kind of Christian model am I being to my own kids?
Wow.
So I went to this retreat, and it was up in a ranch in San Francisco, and God met me there. That's when it all turned around.
Yeah.
And so, and that was in 2004.
Wow.
So it was while I was already teaching, and I was already seeing all these high school kids who were going through their traumas and they were going through their pains. And I realized, God, I have to be equipped to help them.
Yes.
And even though I know you, I've read the Bible, I feel like I've followed you all my life, what's missing? So when I went away on this retreat, God just met me there.
I've read that part of your book. I was
powerful.
so touched. Like
Yes.
it literally put a knot in my throat to see. I want people to buy it and read it.
Yeah,
To see
so
what happened.
I'm not going to describe the whole thing, but it was
But
just
it was-
like an eye-opener. And I, for the first time, realized that's why Jesus died for me. Because by now, I did have all these sins.
Yeah.
I think when I did it back when I was 19, I hadn't really sowed my wild oats, so to speak.
Yeah.
And now at like 30 something, like I had done stuff. You know what I mean? I'm not going to get too graphic, but I was like, I was a sinner in every sense of
We
the
all
word.
are.
I felt like I was a
Whether
hypocrite.
one sin or a million, like we're all falling short of the
Exactly.
glory
We
of
all
God.
fall
Yeah.
short. We all
We
fall
need God's
short of
grace,
the
like you
glory.
said.
So when it really hit me that I needed a savior, I needed someone to just wash away all the failures, all those, the sin and the grime and the stuff that the world throws at you.
Yes.
And so in that moment, that's how I knew that, I need to really commit my life for real this time.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Well, friends, be sure to catch us next time on the Elena and Natalia show as we continue with part 2 of our interview with Mrs. Pia Hugo. Hope you've been encouraged by the interview, insight, and inspiration you're being given throughout our interview with Pia. She's been so open and transparent in sharing her story and experiences with us and with you, but most importantly, pointing you to the love of God. Yes, we'll be talking in depth with Pia about vital themes in her new book, Becoming a Four-Faced Christian, My Journey from Traumas to Triumphs, and we'll also open a time for prophetic prayer and history with her. For more information on Pia or to support her and purchase her book, Becoming a Four-Faced Christian, be sure to visit piahugo.com. Yes, and also we love it if you encouraged us and followed us on our social media platforms at Elena Natalia TV. We love to hear from you, and we love to hear if any of our shows have impacted you and what the Lord is currently doing in your life. So please feel free to reach out to us. And until next time, love and blessings. Ciao.
You are all I need.